concerns, questions. And notably, one thing I should tell you that recently, not very recently, but about 8 years ago, Professor MGS and myself sat for 3 years continuously. Mostly we sat through sleepless nights to bring out a small coffee table book on Calicut. That book is now available. Most of you are having the photostat copies of that. So that is the first commemorative volume on Calicut. We were made to sit on that by a vice chancellor who was from outside, happens to be a Maharashtrian. He found that Calicut is absent in its monumental history. There were stories, there were legends, there were all kinds of layers of social memories, but no monuments like that we encounter in Delhi or any other part of it. So he provoked MGS to sit on such a book, which could be used as a coffee table book, and I was also instrumental in assisting that. So after that, after the publication of that, there were a series of other books commemorating Calicut, storytelling on Calicut, remembrances upon Calicut, both in Malayalam and English. So he is a pathbreaker in that area. Now, Professor MGS.
Okay. Welcome, friends. Some of you are from Kerala, but most others are from other areas in India. Huh? Most of you are from Kerala and some from outside. Who are the outsiders? Oh, from which area? Maharashtra. Delhi. Karnataka. Mumbai. Okay. So for those who are outside Kerala, this must be the first visit to Kerala or what? Huh? You went down or are they going to?
No, this is their first. This is the starting point.
Starting in actually.
They are on the platform waiting for your green signal.
Kerala, geographically, you know that between the Western Ghats on the one side and the Arabian Sea on the other, it's a long strip of land, blessed with about 44 rivers and small rivulets and streams like that, so that Kerala could not easily be unified into one administrative unit or other. There were about 44 rivers starting from Western Ghats and joining the Arabian Sea. That means in those days, earlier days, when there were no bridges, it was difficult to travel through Kerala. And that's the one reason why it was not united into one country with a single administration. People had to cross the rivers and it made horse travel very difficult. It was a land of ups and downs and people had to move without the help of roads in many parts of the country. Small rivers and rivers, and then hills, mountains. It was uneven land. Now that you are going to visit some parts of Kerala, if you have any questions in mind, please come out with them so that I can try to answer. I have been through this country mostly by walk because buses were not available, cars were not available, roads were not properly available with bridges, and therefore most of my visits had to be done through walking. And during those days of my research, I was interested in visiting many places and seeing the inscriptions and the drawings, whether they are from sometimes from the high hills of Wayanad, like Calicut, sometimes in difficult forest areas. That was the punishment at that time, but it turned out to be a blessing for me in the sense that I was very familiar with the terrain and the people through such intimate contacts. Now let me ask you or request you to come out with your concerns, your doubts, etc. Whatever is possible for me, I can do.
The idea that Kerala as a whole is considered to be a single city. So there is a rural-urban continuum. And keeping this terminology, keeping this idea in mind, could you propose could you situate Calicut as this important segment in how do you account for the proximity towards sea and also the upcoming of Calicut city? Situating Calicut in Calicut. You can start with
Now, Calicut is not one of the ancient cities of Kerala. It is comparatively recent. The earlier towns in Kerala, to start with, it was Mujiri or Muziris. Muziris, as the Greeks pronounced it, Mujiri in Tamil on the sea coast. And that Mujiri was same as what is known as Ranganur or Kodigal today. That was the earliest seaport on the Arabian Sea, as mentioned by Greek sailors like Hippasus. His name is associated with it as the first of the Greek sailors who entered this area. And here he has reported it, he has mentioned it in his writings. So from that period, in the first century AD, we start getting information. After Mujiri comes Kollam, Koilon as it is known in English, Kollam and Malayalam. So Mujiri or Mujiri, Kollam or Koilon, and then Kozhikode is a comparatively recent city which became famous in the world through the visit of Vasco da Gama in 1498 AD. About Calicut, there is nothing earlier than that period, than the 13th, 14th centuries, because it came up as a result of trade in the later period only. Earlier there were Ranganur or Kodigal, Kollam or Koilon, and a number of small harbour towns on the sea coast. But Calicut came into existence in the 12th century, in the beginning of the 12th century, I believe. After the last ruler of the United Chera Kingdom, the German Germans, as they are known, after the last of them left Kerala for Mecca and never returned. It's after that Calicut acquired its importance in trade and navigation. Now I will stop here temporarily for you to ask questions, what more questions you have about Calicut, origin, development, significance in trade, navigation, etc. You may ask whatever answers I can give, I will give you.
long time. What is the essence of Kerala? Like what makes Calicut Calicut apart from the geographical location?
Mm.
What is the like what is that you relate with Kerala and Calicut?
Well, as I told you, Calicut is not an early city. Early cities were Ranganur also, and known as Milki also, and then Koilam or Koilam. Calicut came late. After the Chera Kingdom, United Chera Kingdom came to an end. There were many small states. The difficulty about Kerala was that geographically the many rivers, 44 rivers were there, and then the branches and rivulets made the construction of roads very difficult. Bridges were not available, and therefore administratively the land was divided into many Nadu. Nadu means country, and Nadu is a unit of administration here. There were about 17, 18 Nadus in Kerala, and each of them was under a Naduwadi or governor of the Nadu. But as it happens, like when it's divided like that, there were all kinds of problems between them, conflicts between them, interest and trade, and competition for prominence for places. That was why Kerala could be united only in the later period of Aikya Kerala. Just before that, just before the United Kerala was formed, the land was divided into three parts. Cochin, which was a native state. Travancore, just a bigger native state, because it was a small country around the city of Cochin. And then Travancore, the southern part of Kerala, and British Malabar. After the British defeated Tipu Sultan in Sri Lanka, that part of the country was also acquired and administrated by them. So these three parts were united, joined to form Aikya Kerala, a single Kerala state. Even before that, the land had a common language, common culture, common rituals, etc. And there was a sense of unity. There was a craving for unification, which could be realized only in the late 19th century. And after that, Kerala as a special unit of South India. Otherwise, it was known as the part of South India, Tamilagam, Tamil land, because Tamil was spoken in common in most parts of this present-day Kerala state. And the distinction between Kerala and the rest of South India, known as Tamilagam, was created by the Western Ghats. And it became very much pronounced after the migration to Kerala and settlement in Kerala of Aryan Gotras. During that period, it was known that there were 32 Aryan Gotra lands in Kerala. Several of them are identified recently in the modern research study of Kerala started. And 4 of them which were remaining outside, they were also identified recently. Because each Nadu, each Grama had its own Grama Kshetra. And most of the Grama Kshetras had inscriptions on their walls. So that made it easy for historians to identify the Gramas with the help of the inscriptions mentioned there. this much I would like to say by way of introduction, and then it's up to you to bring out questions, questions which you have in mind, so I can try to elaborate whatever known.
I have a question. You said that Calicut is a very recent city, and also there was visit from Vasco da Gama to the city. So did that make a difference between Calicut developing as a city and the other cities like Mujri, which were already there before the Westerners came? Did the visit from Vasco da Gama and the other colonial rulers make Calicut different from the other cities?
Not much earlier. Calicut was coming into prominence during the period of 15th century, 1498. By that time it was known in Asia and Europe, and that is why Vasco da Gama visited Calicut. His idea, even when he started from Portugal, from Lisbon, was to visit Calicut. So that destination was there. The desire to see Calicut, which was famous as the center of navigation and trade at Crete. That's why he came. Even before he came, the city was known in Europe also, in that remote part of Europe also. And once he came here, it became a landmark in history, and people came to know much more about Calicut and its importance in trade and navigation. Calicut is not a natural harbour. Really, the nearest harbour town is Koilani, about 2 kilometers to the north of Calicut. Because there is a problem here for sea coast. The zigzag formation of sea coast is there. And due to what is known as the Paravarsha, seasonal rain, ships found it very difficult to come to Calicut because the sea coast was rough. And ships, in those days, the ships were not mechanically driven as today. They were driven by the wind. If they were stationed in a harbour, the rising tide in the sea would make high waves battering against the body of the ship and ruining it. To avoid that, they had to select areas where there was a small creek and an inland sea formation, where the waves were not so high. So ships sought such areas, and one such area was Koilandi. That is why Koilandi was known as the harbour. And whenever you mention the harbour town of Calicut, you actually refer to Koilandi, which is about 15-16 kilometers to the north of Calicut. There is a small inland sea formed by the action of the waves. And there the ships are safe. Once you enter that inland bay, the high waves will not batter against the body of the ship, and the ship will be intact. This is the geographical reason which made people come to Calicut with their ship and take shelter in that harbour of Koilani. Because of that, trade increased there, and it came to be known all over the world. Now you can have your other questions about Calicut. What do you have in mind? If I find it easy, I can answer that.
about Calicut. So, as a historian, what would you suggest where I should start and how?
Well, city of Calicut, the places Calicut itself, you know. Go to the beach, see there is a big lighthouse there. You can start from there. And in fact, my book on Calicut, Calicut, the city of truth, starts from that, you know, with a walk from the lighthouse along the beach that I have described in the first chapter. So that as you walk from the lighthouse, one can see the places historically, which were historically important, where things happened. And that way, by describing the path from Calicut Lighthouse, I have tried to cover the whole area. That is the first chapter of my book on Calicut. And then, in detail, the development, the historical developments which took place according to the chronological order. Well, this is the introduction that I have in mind. You can now think of questions and whatever details are available to me, I present to you.
So, Arab traders in Gujarat, people from Gujarat came and settled in Calicut. So, how do you think that affected the architecture in Calicut?
Architecture, yes. See, in fact, seas are supposed to divide the land, one land from the other. Actually, they don't divide, they unite. The Arabian Sea, for example, made Arabia nearer to Kerala coast because there were the seasonal winds. They were mostly in order, and those winds put the ships in those days. There were no mechanical ships. Ships were driven by wind, and the fact that these seasonal winds blew from west to east for a long period in the year, and then east to west, made it possible for Arabia and Kerala to be in close proximity. During the period when the winds blew from west to east, ships will take off from Arabia, any harbor town in Arabia, and within 40 days they could reach the coast of Kerala, anywhere in the coast of Kerala. Then they had to wait for some big period. There were about four months for the return wind. During that period, they could make their transactions in trade. They could buy and sell and keep their things ready, commodities ready. Then the other wind, return wind started. So that made a natural traffic route between Kerala and Arabia, and made Kerala and Arabia very close neighbors. Instead of dividing the land, the sea united the land of Arabia and Kerala. That is why when Islam started in the western Midwest area, it immediately spread to Kerala. One of the early regions to which the new Islamic religion founded in 7th century AD came was Kerala because of this intimacy through trade and navigation. Yes? Anything more?
So,
So you will find, if you observe, that Kerala has a special kind of architecture which is known as Calicut. Calicut means four buildings on four sides, four quarters, and in between, and there was middle area. So Narikatta is a time-honored traditional form of architecture in Kerala, which you find in some of the Western countries also. Through imitation, they have spread. And what was known as the pagoda earlier in the writings of Europeans was this Narikatta. Four buildings, one building here, one there, like that. So they enclosed a middle ground, and that is why it was known as Narikatta. Sometimes it was duplicated and called 8 letters like that, Kettagatta. Sometimes 16 letters like that. The number was duplicated. So Narikatta was the basic traditional form of architecture in Kerala. And this was closely connected with geographical position. Elsewhere, outside Kerala, you will find that there will be a river or a lake around which clusters of houses are formed. And then an area which is uninhabited or scarcely inhabited. Then another cluster of houses, another small village or town, and then a patch of uninhabited virgin land, then a few clusters of houses forming a small town, like that. And this made the outline essential. Walls were to be constructed around it, and in front of the entrance, they used to have the figure, the sculptured figure of a soldier on horseback. That was the sign of a coming village or small town. The small town or village was walled up, and at the entrance point there was the figure of a soldier on horseback. This was there because after the cluster there was a no man's land for some time, 10 or 15 or 20 acres, and then another cluster like that. This was the geographical formation of the land elsewhere. But in Kerala, because of the greenery, because of the presence of 44 rivers in the village, that kind of separation was not. The whole of the land was a single village or a single town, and there was no reason, no need for walls to be built and entrances to be demarcated. That is why Kerala was geographically different from other areas. It was one continuous inhabiting area. Therefore, separate villages or cities could not be. Of course, they were there for sake of administration, but they were not geographically designated. They were created artificially for the convenience of administration. Now, as I mentioned, the Arabian Sea, instead of dividing the land, united the land because of this kind of proximity, and that is the reason why Kerala was united geographically without the kind of separation that you find in Tamil Nadu or Karnataka or Andhra region. There you will find a city, a small town or a city, and then for a few kilometers, 10, 20 or 30 kilometers, a no man's land, and then another town or village like that. Here it is one contiguous grama or village or town, whatever it is, all inhabited, everywhere people could. One advantage was that due to the heavy rains in a major part of the year, for many months the rains continued, and therefore water was available everywhere. And that made small private wells very important. People could settle down anywhere. They need not wait to see a lake or another natural source for water. On the other hand, wherever they dug, but within 10 or 15 feet in depth, they could find water. So, habitation, human habitation was possible throughout Kerala, and that made the traditional divisions in other regions unnecessary and unimportant in Kerala. For the state for administration, of course, it was divided into villages and towns, but geographically it was one unit. The people took their houses and built their houses continuously, except in very remote mountainous areas. They could dig wells, and in Kerala, the formation is a house and a well. For each house, house there will be a small well, and they depended on these wells mostly, and big tanks were available here and there. That made the natural environment different in this part of the country from Karnataka or Tamil Nadu or Andhra regions. Kerala. Yes, architecturally speaking, the buildings from the very early period from 8th and 9th centuries onwards follow the Narayanan style, that is one area was demarcated. And around that, on both sides of that area, houses and buildings were constructed. That is the Narayanan style. And sometimes one Narayanan was duplicated as Calicut, or 8 such things, such units of construction. Sometimes on the godowns of traders naturally were built on the seaside because that was nearer to them. In Kerala, in Calicut, for example, the area of Kutichara, well, if you go there, you will find narrow gullies, narrow lanes, and houses where joint families lived. Instead of the single families, there were joint families with a large number of sometimes 100 or 200 persons were in the same building. They were separate, they had separate kitchens, separate sleeping areas, but they all belonged to the same building. They were all part of the same building. That is what made the Calicut area special. The way in which, if you go to Calicut beach, you will find the place where such big houses were built, in which there were 3 or 4 families or branches of same family in one building. They had separate kitchens, separate cooking arrangements, but they were all housed in the same place. That is the speciality, this Narayanan system. Sometimes it was replicated into 88 petals or 14 or 16 petals, like that. The basic style, basic traditional organization was that of the Nalukattar, which is common to all parts of Kerala, especially the coastal area.
So this Nalagattu was used or constructed by people who were economically rich that time, right?
That was not necessary because water was available in plenty. Because the rain which continued for months together in Kerala. The rainy season was the longest season in Kerala. And therefore, with every house, you will find a well. That is a speciality. In other areas, you will not find this kind of facility. Houses, several houses that we built around a lake or an artificial lake in order to get water for their use. But here, you can dig anywhere and within about 10-15 feet in depth, you will sight water. So, kind of individualism with each family having its own source of water. That is probably reflected in the social history of Kerala also.
I was also asking whether the great constructs of Calicut was a reflection on the economic condition, the prosperity of the family.
Yes, that's...
Whether rich people could do Calicut.
No, yes, everybody had to. And sometimes when they were rich enough, they constructed Ettagattu, that is with two Nalikatus duplicate, they put together. That was rare, but that was possible and that was available also. And you will find a similarity between the house construction plan in Kerala and that in the western area, Midwest area of Asia. They were having give and take in culture, in all aspects of culture, and house construction also found that buildings on the other side of the Arabian Sea and this side of Arabian Sea had a similar look and pattern.
How the houses are settled in Kerala, but on before, is it with connection with the agriculture or the source for them, like water source, or according to their economic status or the people with their jobs? How the houses were settled in Calicut before, not now.
Pre-European?
Pre-European, pre-modern period, is
I
it?
don't know the period I'm talking about, old period.
You mean
Before,
pre-modern?
when I was
Yeah.
small or when I was not born.
It's pre-modern.
Pre-modern
The original settlement.
period. The facility of a single well providing the source of water for each house made street life as it is known in Karnataka or Tamil Nadu or Andhra unnecessary here. So street life is not there. The street pattern of life, having a central road, broad one, and having houses constructed on both sides of that central way. That is the street life, you will find it in Tamil Nadu, in Karnataka, in Andhra, but not in Kerala. Street life was followed only by certain communities like the weavers, who had the need to be together. Otherwise, in Kerala, there is no street life. Each house is separate and houses are built everywhere without any special preference for water, because what was available everywhere.
There was professional groups preferred to stay together, Avani and
Yes, some of them, because they had their origins outside Kerala. They were accustomed to street life and they followed it here also. For weavers, for example, and some of the craftsmen, they formed such clusters of streets. But otherwise, there is no street life. There is no enclosure which is surrounded by a wall, a protective wall, and a special entrance like that. On the other hand, Kerala is whole, as a whole is a big village, continuous habitation. And that provided for certain features of the social culture of Kerala. Instead of the street culture, there was an individual house culture. And we have a word in Malayalam, Tandedam, that is one's own area. That was not part of any other bigger unit, but everywhere single houses were preferred. They were possible. Water supply was possible because within 10 or 15 feet under the ground, they could sight water. Enough water for the survival of a small family.
So, what was the reason for Nalagattu to form? I mean, from a basic nothing to Kerala developing an architecture of Nalagattu, how did it come into existence?
That was the natural formation. On both sides there must be walls, an enclosed area. To have an enclosed area, the best form is in the architecture. On both sides, walls on both sides. Yes, for walls have to be there, not so much for security because the houses in villages was continuous in Kerala. In Tamil Nadu or Andhra, Karnataka regions, you will find a cluster of houses forming a grama, village or a small town. And then for miles together, there won't be any human inhabitation. That made the protective walls and special entrances necessary. But Kerala, that was not the same thing, not the need, because it was a continuous area of habitation. Every house having its own source of water in a small well. And they did not have to seek the help of a big lake or a river bank in order to get the life-giving supply of water.
So there are a lot of chiras in Calicut, Mana Chira, Kudishira, and can speak about its history, what is it?
Yeah, Manachara is known after the Manavikrama. The owners of Calicut had the title of Manavikrama. And therefore, the Manachara was constructed by one of the Manachara, we don't know. Maybe in the 15th century or so. And since it found a perennial source of water, you will find that even today, the Manachara supplies water for the whole city of Calicut. It is some areas are like that, where there is an underground source of water which is never exhausted. Such a source we have in Manachara. It is known after the Manavikramas. Maybe it was sometime during 15th or 16th century. And even now it continues to supply water for the whole area.
How did
Okay.
the inner city of Calicut develop? From where did it start, architecturally and even culturally? So the migration and all. And I also had one question that what transition do you find in the architecture of the typology of houses? Because you said about Maligatta system. So what transition do you find in those olden times and now? The houses and settlements?
Mostly, the traders preferred to be near the sea. Their godowns were constructed on the sea coast. that was easier for them, for ships. In Kerala, even the old ships could not come to the shore. They were stationed about 8 or 9 miles away from the seashore. And the commodities had to be downloaded into boats at that distance and then taken to the sea by small boats. There was no possibility of the ships coming very near the sea because it was shallow water. That shallow water did not permit them to come very near the coast. They stood about 8 miles or 9 miles away from the coast, and then small boats were used and certain bridges projecting into the sea. You will find the remnants of those bridges on the sea coast even today. That was the way in which Calicut was used because there was no harbour as such as in other areas, but it was far away. The location of the ships was far away from the sea, 8 or 9 miles, the nearest proximity. Otherwise, the shallow water did not permit the heavy ships to come to the coast.
So the settlement started from the sea, from the coast of this sea, and then began inward.
Yeah. The trading houses, the godowns of the traders, mostly Muslims in those areas, they were the seafarers. Their houses are, you find their houses even today on the sea coast. Most of them were having not one family but several families in the same building. Joint family system was involved, and the small family system developed only much later.
So the reason for settlement is because of their jobs were related
To the sea travel, trade, fishing, etc. Were all related. That way it was necessary, but at the same time, the saltish water and the saltish winds made it very difficult for them. The iron furniture in seacoast area can very easily get damaged because of the saltish water and saltish wind. That was a kind of a restriction. But in spite of that, traders had to be near the sea for them to have their transactions.
So after this, we are going to go to Avani area, Avani basin.
I see.
Can you tell the history of that?
Well, Calicut curry is one of the many curries in Kerala. Curry means is the Malayalam form of the Sanskrit word curry. Curry was used for a sacred area where temples were built. And you will find curries everywhere in Kerala. Among which the Calicut curry is very important historically because the Zamarin ruled over Calicut, and the Zamarin from the 15th century at least used to conduct what is that? How can I describe? Conduct scholarly debates. Best example is the Patata. Patata means Patta Sthanam. The Sthanam, the status of a Patta or teacher. The students, the Brahmachari students were known as Chatra or Chatras, and the teachers were known as Pattas. So, Pattasthanam is the title of a guru or of a teacher. And the rulers of Calicut used to conduct what is known as the Avani Patasana according to the birthday asterism, the asterism, the Avani, about 15th century onwards. Even today, you will go, if you go to the Calicut temple, you will find at the entrance a path which divides the two sides of the side platform. On one side, the Brahman and his people and his courtiers stand. On the other side, the Brahmin, mostly Brahmin, and upper caste scholars stand for their debates. And there was a famous debate called Kadavallur Anyonyam. Between them, it's a kind of master or competition between two groups of scholars from two separate villages. That was known as Anyonyam. And that was conducted with Raman and his people on one side of the platform and the debater on the other side. And those who came victorious were given a title Bhatta, the status of a teacher that was given to them. That was why it came to be known as Revadi Pattathanam, following the birth asterism of Eswati.
So, can you talk about the influence that Calicut had on the Zamorins?
Huh?
Influence of the Zamorins
Huh?
that Calicut had.
When the Zamarins, what the origin of the word Zamarin is nobody knows. Samudri in Malayalam and Zamarin in English. Sometimes it is spelled as Samudri, etc. The original meaning of the word is not known. People used to describe it in different ways, but there is no satisfactory explanation for the name. As in the case, people say that you need not seek, you need not search for the origins of great rivers or great traditions. This is the same as far as Zamarin is concerned. The ruler of Calicut was known as Zamarin in English and Samori or Samori in yeah, they came. They came originally from a part of coastal Kerala known as Ernaad. Even today, they are called as Nellirippu rulers. Nellirippu is a small village near the present-day Kondoti. From there they migrated to the coastal area in search of more contacts for trade and navigation. And they formed the city of Calicut. There is a kind of a myth which may not be literally true, that a certain very rich Arab merchant had two sons. And he was afraid that after his period, these two sons will quarrel with each other and destroy each other. Therefore he wanted the elder one to go elsewhere and settle down. And that person, the elder brother, he came to the Kerala coast. He approached each ruler, Naduvadi, in the coastal area and told him that he is keeping a big jar of achar, that is pickles. He will come next year and collect it. But actually, the jars were filled with gold, not pickles. It was very costly. Everyone, out of curiosity, as soon as the man departed, they opened it and they found that it was not actually pickle, but gold. So, as human nature will have it, most of them took out the gold filled it with the achar pickle, kept it for his next visit next year. Only the fool who ruled in this area of Calicut thought that he must be honest. And he said, yes, what you call pickle, the jar filled with pickle, that came actually filled with gold. I have to serve it, and he gave it back. Therefore, Calicut acquired a name for honesty. People will speak the truth, and so therefore Calicut came to be known as the city of truth. And that increased the trade and navigation of Calicut, the importance of Calicut reached far off countries to the other end of Eurasia, Portugal and Spain. And that's the reason why when Vasco da Gama set out on his travels, he had Calicut as the destination. It was a city of truth for people who knew the nature of the relations between these countries.
What was the main economic income for in olden days people? How were they earning money?
Trade was mostly the,
They cultivate in the
of course, cultivation. Without cultivation there cannot be human existence. There nothing was necessary. But more than that, cities were formed when groups of cultivators joined together and formed a trade center, a city, a trade center, where people shared the market and people came, settled down, and the urbanization took place. In a rural area, there will not be much scope for trade, but in an urban area, there will be many traders coming together, and therefore it has greater possibility of getting profit. And if a profit center, a trade center comes up, then by reputation others also come and migrate and settle down there. That is why it grows. In Calicut, they actually what you call the city of Calicut is not in Calicut, but a little north of it, near Koilandi, where there is a small inlet sea, that is the coastal area, allows a small inland area where ships can enter and be safe from the high winds. Otherwise, during the period of rainy season, high winds will often destroy damage the walls of the ships. They were ships made of wood, built in wood, and no iron was used for nailing them, for the nails. Therefore, they were perishable. They had to be protected from the high waves, and that is why a place like Koilandi, where there is an inlet sea, had to be chosen as the station for keeping the vessels, the wooden vessels, safe from the enforcement of the sea.
You were telling that low-income groups, people have migrated to cities for trading.
We take it from that, that they may not know. The chief marketable produce in Kerala happens to be pepper. Kerala was known as the pepper land. Though we do not use pepper in our food, daily food, we use what is known as the kapal managa, the imported chilies, red chilies, which come from China or elsewhere. But the pepper, which has its medicinal value also, is the main product of Kerala. And Kerala was known as the pepper country. And it's for pepper, for possessing more and more pepper, that most of the wars were conducted in the history of Kerala. How to possess more pepper, how to get it more. Because though pepper was not an item of daily food in Kerala, in Europe it had a special importance. During about the 3 or 4 months of winter in Europe, they could not stir out. There were no live markets in the winter season. Therefore, what people did was to slaughter their animals, their cattle, and stock their meat in large numbers in a place. To keep them during the whole year, they needed pepper and salt. These two were employed. That is why pepper became very important in Europe. Though it is not of such importance in Kerala, where it is grown. It was of great importance in Europe, especially Central Europe, places like parts of France and parts of Germany. Pepper was a precious thing which was used in order to preserve the meat of slaughtered cattle throughout the year. They could not go out and they had to depend on that supply. That is why pepper and salt were used in great quantities.
I have a question.
Please.
How did the other states around Kerala influence Kerala? Because you said about the trade that happens through sea. So, was there any trade that happened within the land that?
Naturally, the trade of the coast should have a hinterland where things are grown, and from the hinterland they come to the front areas of trade. That relationship between the trading coast and the hinterland, that existed in Kerala also. Products were cultivated in the rural areas and transported to the coastal areas.
Sir, right now we are going to study two different settlements. That is in a very kind of an urban context, let us say, in Calicut, Tali, and in Kutishara. So the primary intention of this study is to understand how house as a type of a built form, a physical entity, is been evolved through certain actions, cultural aspects, and social and other parameters, dimensions, and it is a tracing back to those elements through that built form. The thing is that after this we are looking onto a completely different dimension of a settlement, where it is more of a rural. Even though we had a discussion on urban rural thing, or it is not that very easy to decipher in Kerala, kind of an argument, how you feel that this connections could be deciphered either visually or, can you cite some examples based on it, through your experience in Tali and Kutichira?
Kutichara is habitat of traders, mostly Muslims, because they were traditionally the traders of the area. And in Kutichara you find many Muslim houses with joint families. It is not one family, not a single family, but several families inhabited the same building. They had separate kitchens also, but they lived in the same house. Big houses were there, and narrow lanes were there. Even today, if you go there in Kuchichara, you will find Muslim houses, large houses, with Narigatu or Vettigata type of construction, where several families live together. Each one having its own separate kitchen, and some relations, maybe marriage relationship is there, but it is not a single family, it is a cluster of several families. So the joint family system was prevailing there. It is actually the secret of the development of Calicut is the alliance between the Nayars of the region and the Muslims of the region. Instead of being competitive, they were cooperative. The Nayars of the land and the Muslim traders who came from outside and made a settlement here. They cooperated with each other and in fact complemented each other. That is the secret of prosperity of Kozhikode. It's a Nayar Muslim area. Muslims in large numbers and Nayars in large numbers, and they had a cooperative relationship.
So, to add to my earlier question, when we are actually looking at a kind of a rural, which you, where water was a main element of idea of settling. So, I mean, what are the kind of a life around it? I mean, how people used to live. I mean,
the main source of living was paddy land, well watered paddy lands. Paddy required water all around the year, and so such lowlands were through rain or through rivers. Paddy was cultivated in large numbers, in large quantities. That was the preferred area. And most of the low-lying middle land of Kerala is paddy land. There are of course small hills, uneven terrain and all that, but still the main source of cultivation was paddy. Paddy and to a certain extent coconut. So Kerala is known as coconut area. Kera. Kera is the name, or Nali Kera, or coconut. And when you see from outside, from the sea, the whole coast is full of coconut trees. And they say, some scholars assume that even the land of Kerala is the land of coconuts, Kera Vriksha, or coconut tree.
So I have a question. So you talked about how the people are organized in the city around trade and occupation. And even though you said that there is no strict definition barrier between city and village. So I'm just thinking. In the sort of the rural, so-called rural area, if people seem more independent of each other in terms of families. So, but then also, what would have defined the proximity of one family to the other, and what, even though we cannot strictly call them communities, what would have brought them together? Festival maybe, or.
Yeah, markets and festivals were there for them to come together, but street life was not. outside Kerala, in Tamil Nadu or Karnataka or Andhra, you find mostly people living in streets, a big central road on either side of which there will be houses. Here you don't find that kind of street life because wherever you dig, you find water. What is supplied available everywhere and not with great difficulty. Therefore, the separation between villages and between villages and cities is only in our mind, not in nature. We demarcate the area for the sake of administrative convenience, but it is not naturally there. That makes Kerala different in geographical formation from Tamil Nadu or Karnataka or Andhra.
But festivals and markets would have brought people.
Yeah,
So-
from the rural areas, they will come to the city areas for marketing their products and for buying products for their subsistence during the rest of the year. That kind of relationship was there. But mostly Kerala was a rural area with agriculture.
How these houses were connected socially.
There was kind of unit called Tara. Tara means a high platform. And that is a word from this Tarawad, the name for the big joint family houses, Tarawad in Narayanan language. Tara means a certain platform where people live. Each Tara was separate from the other because there was clusters of houses where water was supplied, water was available, and then areas which were no man's land for some time, for some distance. And then again another cluster. So Taras were the basic units of rural organization.
What they used to do in Tara?
They have had close cooperation between the houses. Each Tara had a kind of meeting, the Tara Kutams. Kutam means an assembly of the Tara, where they discussed common problems, like our panchayat.
They don't have to work together there on something.
No.
That kind of cooperation was
Person,
there.
each family had its own land, its house, its land. But they came together for common purposes.
So,
To share some other resources in common in the rural area setting.
There was no walls separating them. The demarcation of villages was only for sake of administration on paper, but not naturally there. It was just one contiguous area. But they were divided into taras for the sake of administrative convenience.
Sir, in Tamil Nadu and other places, we have separate places for settlement and for a separate land for agriculture. But here you said the houses are split and are individual. So where would they perform agriculture? Would the agricultural lands be part of their house or
In many cases you find in Kerala a big house and around that a small cultivable area, paddy land. As different from the street life, these houses were separate because water was available everywhere because of the availability of water and the possibility of digging small wells for each house. They did not have to depend on each other too much as in other parts of the country.
So, we started a discussion. I mean, during your talk, about the modern and era and what happened and something like that. So, after kind of a modernization happened in all aspects, and particularly in architecture, where we study that community need a kind of a separate designated spaces to come together, and we started creating kind of a hierarchy that okay, neighborhood spaces, community spaces, and large spaces with streets and things like that, which are like say physical entities in our community. But that we thought, or say that the idea was those spaces were of to bring community together. Even though our settlement pattern has this kind of a individuality maintained, based, and they don't have to depend each other so much on living. How these kind of a cohesive idea of community is being brought? Was it so notional, or say very kind of an intangible thing in the form of festivals and other things?
Yeah, festivals have played a very important role in that. But then mutual dependence was there, for the rural agricultural people. They have to sell their products in the market area of the town. And the town had to depend on the rural areas for the agricultural products. So that made mutual dependence necessary. They were closely connected, the towns and villages, but at the same time, there were no separate wars for villages. That is a speciality of Kerala. In Tamil Nadu or Andhra or Karnataka region, you will find enclosed cities, but here you don't find that. Because such separation becomes necessary when one village or town is separated from the other, and there is a distance of no man's land. That is not here. The whole land is populated, and there are very few areas where living is not possible. Only the high hills, sometimes mountainous areas. Otherwise, most of the land is people, and inhabitation is not difficult, because each house could have its own well as a source of drinking water.
In my childhood, we never had these kind of a common designated spaces to happen, certain activities, say to have a playground or anything. So recently there was some kind of a memoirs of some that I read through this thing, which connected to my childhood or as well. Whenever that cropping, this thing happened, that happened particularly during the Vishu season or something, and the paddy fields will be left for kids to play.
Yeah.
So we make cricket pitches or say football matches over there, and that kind of a transition where there is no kind of a designated idea of space, of a community idea, and more of we were associating with certain events. So can you elaborate on a little bit, my childhood is say almost 30 years maximum. My experience is say maximum 30. I mean, you might be knowing, I heard stories from my father and grandfather talking about these kind of an activities. These kind of going to certain festivals where there is no idea about gathering in some place, but the idea of festival is something very important.
Yeah.
So we had that kind of a community idea.
Yeah. Certain sacred spaces like temples attracted people during festival days. They did not stay there, but they went and had the transaction and then went back to their own habitation sites. Therefore, you do not find the separation between city and village in Kerala as much as in the neighboring area.
So these festivals were acting as local areas and markets also.
Yes, festival areas were marketing areas as well, They all went from the rural areas in order to have the small luxuries, on the marketplace.
Was agriculture as a like a main entity or main element connecting this houses together, or community as a like binding force?
Yeah, the agriculture in Kerala did not produce much surplus product. So agriculture was for subsistence, not for marketing. That was possible only in certain areas, but the restricted areas. But mostly, agriculture was carried on for the sake of livelihood throughout the year. That's all.
So things like schools and education, hospitals. So if somebody got sick, then how would they? In a household, so they would have to reach out to somebody outside the household to get some help.
Yeah.
Somebody got ill. So how would they resolve
There
that?
were some hospitals, Ashwatri they called it, in rural areas also. But then specialized health treatment was not available in those areas, those centers. For that, specialists were very, very rare. For a snake bite, for example, they had to carry the person for long distances, on shoulders or in palanquins. Such big hospitals were not available in Kerala, in rural Kerala, in the traditional sense. Traditional system of medicine, Ayurveda was there. And outside Ayurveda also, there were Mulikas, special medicinal herbs which were known to certain families, and they kept it as a great, great secret. They passed it on from generation to generation. It was not common property. That such things were also, Mulikas were available everywhere in Kerala. This is outside Ayurveda.
What we call as panacea.
Yeah.
Panacea, single point treatment.
Yeah, if some families had it, they preserved it, they passed it on from generation to generation.
Sir, one more question. What about the ownership of land? Because when I was teaching these students about like say what happened, the political and connecting into the architecture. So in Kerala that EMS Bhuparishkaran, like land. What, I don't
Land was mostly Devasam and Brahmasam. Temple land, Devasam, Deva's land, God's land, and Brahmasam. Brahmasam is Brahmin land. When there were huge cultivated areas which were owned by the temples, that was called Devasam. And some Brahmin families were designated in order to look after them, conduct agriculture. That was land called Brahmasam, Brahmin property. So, God's property and Brahmin property. These were the two kinds of land possessed by people. But paddy cultivation was largely carried on not by the owners of land, but by the tenants. So the Kudiyan, the tenant, became much more important than the landlord. When the Land Reform Act was passed in modern times, EMS administration and all that, the land that was divided was actually Kudiyan's land, tenant's land, not the owner. The owner had only a very nominal income, source of income. But most of the land were in the hands of tenants. Tenants, subtenants, and then there are other subtenants like that. There was a whole hierarchy on land. It was a very complicated system. very difficult to study and understand as many of the modern historians admitted.
But one thing that I it is my only like observation which hasn't been tested. What I felt is like say after the Land Reformation Act and the subsequent Gulf migration and other social changes that happened, we could see a great extent of individual houses and the size of plot started reducing. Those kind of changes started happening. Yeah, partitioning
Of
like
family properties, yes.
that's what is your like opinion about like how it actually changed our life pattern?
Naturally, the partition of family and family estates created atomic subdivision, and that made livelihood very difficult for these small units of family. They had to depend on agriculture and then partly some kind of industry or trade. So that land reform in Kerala in modern period made a big change in the social sector. Agriculture was not sufficient for families to maintain themselves. They had to depend on
Secondary sources. Secondary sources.
Secondary sources. The old system was completely destroyed, and that brought about the new Kerala, with people searching for new avenues of what small scale industry, cottage industry, that flourished.
After industrialization, therefore, I think that common agricultural activities and other trade has reduced as
No, industrialization to that extent never took place in Kerala. Kerala is still not that much industrialized as many other parts of South India. Industrialization only in a small measure has taken place here. Big industries, big factories are extremely rare because the resources, the capital resources were not available. Therefore, most industries are small scale industries and cottage industries, and industrialization with big factories is mostly unknown to Kerala. There are no industrial families like the Tatas and Birlas in Kerala. The temples had that temple property, they also, and to maintain them, to look after them properly, there were Brahmin families. They were given a share that was known as Brahmasam. So Brahmasam lands were family lands, and Devasam lands were temple lands. It was a very complicated system and very difficult to understand.
So, can you comment on that? What is the influence in Kerala?
Well, I can comment on it because there was not much Buddhist influence in Kerala. People assumed, before the coming of the Brahmins, Arya Brahmins, Kerala was mostly inhabited by Buddhists, but there is no evidence of that. There is only one vihara, one important vihara in Kerala, that was called the Sri Moolavasa Vihara. Where it was actually located is not known. Maybe it is somewhere in central Kerala, but the only document that is available is from South Kerala, from the I country. And for that, there is a long charter. Part of it is Sanskrit slokas, part of it is Tamil description of the areas of cultivation which were owned by them. That is Srimulavasa document. That's all. So, but in the beginning of the modern period, because there was some kind of anti-Brahmin attitude, people assumed that Buddhists were having much prominence in Kerala. We don't find any evidence for it. The Shastra figure is identified with Buddha, but it's only in imagination. The Shastra, if you have observed the icon of the Shastra, is the posture, not that of a sage, but he sits in a peculiar fashion, not the traditional sitting posture. Yeah.
The book Sangam said otherwise, and also we can find circular plants in our otherwise, and we can also find variety in the architecture like circular plants.
I don't understand the question fully. Yeah.
The influence of
That is not the influence of Buddhism.
No, she's
There were three major forms of sacred architecture. One was a circular temple, the other was a rectangular temple, and sometimes the rectangular shrine had a Mahamandapa, front mandapa platform for people to sit and worship and say their prayers. So the circular form, the rectangular form, and then there was a very common feature, the Gajaprashta. Gajaprashta means the back side of the elephant. Gaja is the Prashta is the back side of the elephant. That is the upside form with a front line, and then the formation is not circular or rectangular, but upside. We will go around. So the upside form is also very common. The earlier shrines in Kerala are mostly circular. Later ones are sometimes circular, sometimes rectangular, but mostly upside. These are the three forms.
Women also go for work.
Women also work.
Now they are having a industry or making something like snacks. Before also was there.
But in traditional man-dominated society, women were mostly kept inside the house, for kitchen work, for keeping looking after the children, etc. And they were not generally seen, except in the case of the lower caste and lower groups. The women did not go out for work. They stayed inside, they looked after the children, they looked after the kitchen, that's all. There was some kind, it was a male-dominated society. And they imagined that if women were allowed freedom in the market outside, that will lead to all kinds of complications in the traditional society did not allow much freedom to women. But there were exceptions to the rule, but mostly they were kept in the inside.
What were the secretaries also picked up for people other than agriculture?
The industries were oil industries mostly. making of a fire pit. Mm-hmm.
There are some guests waiting. They have already taken appointment. I just crashed in. That is the usual practice in Avani. We invite ourselves to disturb people, especially very senior people. So I take this opportunity to not to thank you formally, but express my gratitude for having spent so long time with our students. No, I would invite Midun to honor MGS on behalf of Avani. This is our token sense of gratitude. Please come. Yeah.